We are entrusting the day and the endeavor to the Lord. Let's go. Welcome to my channel where I visit many good books but live in the Bible. My name is Sarah Christine, and today I would like to talk about none other than Andy Weir's The Martian. I know, I am like a decade late to this, but I picked it up because I heard it was funny and I wanted to watch the film and preferred to read the source material before I watch a movie. And I'd also been reading a lot of classic sci-fi recently, whether that's The War of the Worlds, Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep, and The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. I did reviews of all three, loved them, got so much from reading them, and I wanted to read a more contemporary contribution to the sci-fi genre to see if I would vibe, and oh my golly gosh, did I. If you, like me, had not read or watched The Martian until very recently, the premise is pretty straightforward. On mankind's third trip to Mars, one of the astronauts gets left behind, and he has to figure out a way to survive in a place that is, to put it mildly, hostile to life. Fortunately for Mark, he is a UChicago grad, which means he knows how to suffer with sass. And he's also a botanist engineer, two fields that will come in very handy in what he terms the Mark Watney Doesn't Die project. In his fight for survival, Mark will best the toilet of doom, make creative use of a crucifix, colonize a planet, bawl like a little kid for several minutes, become a bona fide space pirate, and blow himself up growing potatoes. All of this he will do with humor and grit, which made The Martian a really fun reading experience. To tell the truth, it was cuckoo banana pants to me when I found out that The Martian was Andy Weir's first book, self-published no less. I was like so impressed. And I highly recommend both the book and the film adaptation with the wonderful Matt Damon, not only because, as I said, the story is excellent, but also because The Martian helped me think through what it means to be ready for a worst case scenario. And while I will never, in Jesus' name, be stranded on another planet, I mean, I am not one for international, let alone interplanetary travel. Like, no lie, a couple summers ago, someone in my life, who I will call Ratacutie, got really into watching 90 Day Fiancé. And she called me over, she was like, Sarah, you gotta watch this. You gotta know what can happen if you go to a foreign country. And I cut her off. I was like, Ratacutie, it's me. I like to be in America. And she didn't miss a beat. She was like, a foreign state then. All that to say, though I will never be stranded all alone on a foreign planet, I think the attributes that Mark Watney has, which enables him to go toe-to-toe in this worst case scenario, are transferable. And they're what I would like to talk about in greater depth today. First things first though, what constitutes a worst case scenario? I'm gonna say three things. You can agree or disagree. Let me know in the comments if you think I'm missing something. But I'm gonna contend that a worst case scenario is novel. You've never encountered something like it before. It is dynamic, like things are continuing to change as you're trying to get a handle on it. And three, you are flying solo. There is no support to be had. It is just you facing something that's novel and dynamic. That's cuckoo banana pants. I think that would be pretty bad. So yes, a worst case scenario is something that is novel, it's dynamic, and you're solo. And our man Mark Watney has got the whole trio. When it comes to novelty, page 117, it's a strange feeling, Mark says. Everywhere I go, I'm the first. Step outside the rover, first guy to ever be there. Climb a hill, first guy to climb that hill. Kick a rock, that rock hadn't moved in a million years. I'm the first guy to drive long distance on Mars. The first guy to spend more than 31 sols on Mars. The first guy to grow crops on Mars. First. I'm the first person to be alone on an entire planet. And so we get to number two, dynamic. It is not a nice planet. On page 269, Mark says, Mars keeps trying to kill me. And Mars is not being static with it. It is being dynamic. It has new methods of attack each time. And it is to the point that Mark eventually sets aside 5 ration packs to eat as like kind of a reward as he conquers various trials that Mars throws at him. And one of those ration packs is labeled, survived something that should have killed me. And Mark can't even say what that something will be because Mars is keeping him guessing. On page 309, Mark says, I saved 5 meal packs for special occasions. I wrote their names on each one. The 4th one is survived something that should have killed me because some effing thing will happen. I just know it. I don't know what it'll be, but it'll happen. The rover will break down, or I'll come down with fatal hemorrhoids, or I'll run into hostile Martians or some SHIT. When I do, if I live, I get to eat that meal pack. So yes, not only are things novel on Mars, they are also dynamic. And then, as we have already discussed, number 3, Mark is solo. He is the first one to be alone on an entire planet. And for the record, he was not expecting that. On page 2, Mark says, actually, I was the very lowest ranked member of the crew. I would only be in command of the mission if I were the only remaining person. What do you know? I'm in command. And since Mark is in command, he is the one that has to go toe-to-toe with this worst-case scenario. And even though The Martian is fictional, I picked it up shortly after a real-life worst-case scenario happened on the other side of the world, the Bondi Beach shooting in Australia back in December. Yeah, just awful. But one good thing that came out of it that actually got a decent bit of news coverage was the fact that this middle-aged, unarmed florist tackled one of the terrorists. And in the aftermath of that story, while I was thinking about this story, I asked someone in my orbit who used to be in the special forces, like, hey, would the guys who you served with do what that florist did, run unprepped, unarmed, into a kinetic scenario all alone? And he said, amongst the tier 2 guys, it would be a coin toss. Like half of them would stay undercover and the other half would try and help, would do what the florist did. But he said, but amongst tier 1 guys, like Delta Force, he's like, oh no, all those guys are going in. They're gonna go. They're not gonna shrink back from a novel, dynamic, solo scenario. And I was like, I wonder what makes tier 1 guys different from tier 2. And so I became a bit of an internet sleuth and was just trying to find out all the information I could about Delta Force. And funnily enough, I found a video of none other than Ben Affleck, who is friends with Matt Damon, talking about meeting some of the Delta Force guys, presumably for a movie he was shooting. And he asked them at one point, what is it about you guys that makes you different? Like, what is that X factor? And one of the guys said, oh, we're good at problem solving. Which brings us back to Mark Watney, because he is a king of problem solving. On page 106, after NASA realizes that Mark Watney is alive and that they left him behind, they are being very transparent with the public about all things related to Mark Watney, to the extent that they even have a deal with CNN to have a daily Mark Watney report for 30 minutes, where various guests, all the way from people from the Postal Service to NASA execs, come on to give their perspective on the situation. So, page 106, our next guest is Dr. Irene Shields, flight psychologist for the Ares missions. Dr. Shields, welcome to the program. Thank you, Irene said, adjusting her microphone clip. Do you know Mark Watney personally? Of course, Irene said. I did monthly psych evaluations on each member of the crew. What can you tell us about him, his personality, his mindset? Well, Irene said, he's very intelligent. All of them are, of course, but he's particularly resourceful and a good problem solver. Problem solving, that is the commonality between Tier 1 Delta Force operators and stranded, but not dead Martians. They are good at problem solving. And as I thought about it, I was like, oh yeah, being a good problem solver would be gold in a worst case that is novel, dynamic, and solo scenario. Why? Well, let's just take the first part of the term, problem solver. Problem. If someone is a good problem solver, they're going to be able to identify that something is wrong and what is wrong, i.e. the problem. And if they're a great problem solver, like Mark Watney, they're going to be able to do that fast. Fun fact, there's actually a word for that. The ability to quickly take in and understand information is perspicacious. If someone is perspicacious, they can rapidly grasp what is wrong instead of running around like a chicken with their head cut off. And more than just being able to take in information that's new, being perspicacious means you can process new problems as they're on the move, which means you'll have 2 of the 3 worst case scenario issues in hand. If someone is a great problem solver, i.e. perspicacious, they will be able to rapidly assess novel and dynamic information, meaning that they can quickly and correctly map out a plan of attack. But this is where the solver part of the problem solver comes in, because they do actually have to be able to act. If all someone can do is assess, in a worst case scenario, at best, they're an impotent egghead. At worst, they dead. Because again, worst case scenario, novel, dynamic, solo. You are alone. You are your own last line of defense. And in that situation, you have to be able to do more than assess. You need to be able to address the problem at hand. If Mark Watney could only assess, if he had to delegate the execution of his solutions, he would be dead. For instance, on day 119 of Mark Watney's Mars expedition, the HAB, which is short for Mars Lander Habitat, breaches, and the airlock detaches with Mark in it, launching him into the ether. On page 183, the airlock flew 40 meters before hitting the ground. Watney, barely recovered from the earlier shock, now endured another as he hit the front of the door face first. His faceplate took the brunt of the blow, the safety glass shattering into hundreds of small cubes. His head slammed against the inside of the helmet, knocking him senseless. The airlock tumbled across the surface for a further 15 meters. The heavy padding of Watney's suit saved him from many broken bones. He tried to make sense of the situation, but he was barely conscious. Finally done tumbling, the airlock rested on its side amid a cloud of dust. Watney, on his back, stared blankly upwards through the hole in his shattered faceplate. A gash in his forehead trickled blood down his face. Regaining some of his wits, he got his bearings. Turning his head to the side, he looked through the back door's window. The collapsed HAB rippled in the distance, a junkyard of debris strewn across the landscape in front of it. Then a hissing reached his ears. Listening carefully, he realized it was not coming from his suit. Somewhere in the phone booth-sized airlock, a small breach was letting air escape. He listened intently to the hiss, then touched his broken faceplate. Then he looked out the window again. "You effing kidding me?" he said. Audio log, transcript, Sol 119. You know what? F this. F this airlock, F the HAB, F the whole planet. Seriously, this is it. I've had it. I've got a few minutes before I run out of air, and I'll be damned if I spend them playing Mars' little game. I'm so sick of it, I could puke. All I have to do is sit here. The air will leak out and I'll die. I'll be done. No more getting my hopes up, no more self-delusion, and no more problem solving. I've effing had it. Audio log transcript, Sol 119-2. Sigh. Okay, I've had my tantrum, and now I have to figure out how to stay alive again. Okay, let's see what I can do here. As we've already established, Mark is perspicacious. He is able to quickly assess the problems, such as the leaking airlock, the shattered faceplate, the fact that he is several meters away from the habitat, but more than that, he is able to act. For the sake of alliteration, I'm going to call the ability to act being powerful. So to be great at problem solving, like Mark Watney, you gotta be perspicacious and powerful. The two P's of problem solving. In Mark's case, knowledge is his power. He knows that to find the leak, he's got to light a fire. He knows how to start a fire with just his hair and static electricity. He knows to watch the smoke to find the breach. And he knows to whip out duct tape to patch the leak. And when he succeeds, Mark even flexes a bit. He flexes his knowledge, his power, saying on page 190, audio log transcript, Sol 119-5. It's been 15 minutes and the tape is still holding. Looks like that problem is solved. Sort of anticlimactic, really. I was already working out how to cover the breach with ice. I have 2 liters of water in the EVA suit's hamster feeder. I could have shut off the suit's heating systems and let the airlock cool to freezing. Then I'd, well, whatever. Could have done it with ice. I'm just saying. And here's the thing. Mark was doing that all on his own without assistance. Like, NASA was watching him from satellite, but they couldn't help him. He was flying solo, which is why he had to be powerful. All that said, if you want to be ready and able to handle a worst case, i.e. novel, dynamic, and solo scenario, you got to be a great problem solver, which means being perspicacious and powerful. And if you're thinking, I am neither of those things, you are in good company, because I am neither of those things. Like, I have long described myself as an intellectual slow cooker. Like, I had to think about things for a minute. I am not perspicacious. And when it comes to power, I am a weaker vessel. I normally have to flag down a man just to open something like an olive can. So yeah, when it comes to perspicacity and power, I'm like, where are they at? But that's actually great, because that means I cannot rely on my own brain or my own strength. I have to pray. And I frequently ask the Lord to make me like Bezalel, who we meet in Exodus 31:3, when God is given instructions to build the tabernacle. And he's like, listen, I have appointed a skilled man, Bezalel. I have filled him with my spirit and given him wisdom, understanding, and ability in every kind of craft. And I'm like, Lord, can you make me like that? And I know he can, because we are told in John 14:16 that the Spirit of God has been given to us who have received and believed in Jesus. So I am filled with the Lord's Spirit. And I'm just like, Lord, okay, you have given me your indwelling spirit, so you can make me like Bezalel. You can give me wisdom, understanding, perspicacity, and ability, power in every kind of craft. And you know what the Lord does? He really does do that. And if he can do it for me, he can do it for you. That is the truth. Now, before I wrap up, I do want to flash back to Mark Watney, because after getting launched like a cannonball, he does make it back to the hab. However, when the airlock blew, it basically ripped the potato farm in two, and the Martian atmosphere flash froze the potatoes and the soil, which means Mark cannot grow any more food. And that's an issue, which for all Mark's problem-solving abilities, he can't overcome. No food means death. And I think it's true, even for the best of the best. The Mark Watneys or the Delta Force operators who have that great X factor of being problem solvers. Even they will eventually come into contact with what I will call an L factor. A limiting factor, whether that's extreme temperatures, a complete lack of sleep, or the fact that they have no food to eat.
It's been 7 days since I ran out of ketchup.
Whatever it is, there will be a variable which, when it is introduced, like for Mark Watney, there being no more food, eventually, no matter what you do, you are going to lose. Unless someone else comes in to save you. For Mark, it is, spoiler, his Ares 3 crew.
Let's go get him.
Thanks for coming back for me.
Big yay for astronaut friends. But as I was reading The Martian, it struck me as really weird that at no point during his extended Mars mission did Mark ever ask for divine assistance. And I was actually talking with a friend about that, who I will call the conductress, and we agreed that The Martian would have been a very different book if Mark Watney had been a Christian, specifically with respect to the no food issue. And I want to read a little bit from Dietrich Bonhoeffer's The Cost of Discipleship, because I think it is true and beautiful, and it speaks to the food issue. On page 179, Dietrich Bonhoeffer writes, "But the Christian also knows that he not only cannot and dare not be anxious, but that there is also no need for him to be so. Neither anxiety nor work can secure his daily bread, for bread is the gift of the Father. Man in revolt imagines that there is a relation of cause and effect between work and sustenance, but Jesus explodes that illusion. According to him, bread is not to be valued as the reward for work. He speaks instead of the carefree simplicity of the man who walks with him and accepts everything as it comes from God." In The Martian, NASA broke records and regulations, failing to get Mark food on Mars. They were doing their best to try and make protein cubes crash land. And when I was reading all that, I was like, guys, you do know, per Exodus 16:4, that the Lord has a precedent of making bread fall from heaven. So he might be a good one to hit up in this situation. And more than just making bread fall from heaven, in a desert wilderness, no less. We are told in John 6:35 that Jesus is the bread of life. He says, "I am the bread of life. Whoever comes to me will never be hungry, and whoever believes in me will never be thirsty." So while I cannot say for sure, I do suspect that calling on the Lord who makes bread fall from heaven and who is the bread of life incarnate might have saved both Mark and NASA a lot of stress. Personally, I think it would have been at least worth the attempt. And if you ever find yourself in a worst case, i.e. novel, dynamic, and solo scenario with an L factor coming in, making the situation look no-win, my encouragement to you would be to call on Jesus, because we are told in Romans 10:13 that everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. So if you find yourself in a worst case scenario, the best thing that you can do is pray. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope that this was edifying, encouraging, and entertaining, and I hope you will continue to join me as I visit many good books, but live in the Bible. Whew. I still sound like a billy goat, but that's okay, because we say in my family, if God can speak through a donkey, he can speak through you. Also, I noticed that this channel is almost to 100 subscribers, which is bananas to me. And as a thank you, whatever video it is that reaches that 100 mark, the first subscriber to comment, I will reach out to you and we can email. You can tell me of the books that I've reviewed, what one you would like a copy of, and I'll send it to you. I'll personalize it just as a thank you, because your time is valuable and it means so much to me that you spend some of it hanging out with me.